Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06. It's O'Connor and Company. You're right where you want to be to get where you need to go on this stormy Tuesday morning in your nation's capital. And yeah, we've got some snow rolling in here as well, especially if you're north and northwest and west of the capital region. So we'll be giving you details on your drive and your weather every 10 minutes, first on the fives. And in addition to that delightful information, at 7:35, we'll speak with Jaime Brennan, who's running for Frederick County School Board. And at 8:05, the Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the rising star in the Republican Party, Winsome Sears. What am I, like, announcing a UFC fight or something here? I am Larry O'Connor.
She could beat him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She could take it.
Yeah.
I would like to see Larry Hogan and Winsome Sears in a cage match.
No. Let's not go that far.
I mean, we could do worse. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. And Julie, a friend of the program, just a kind and decent and wonderful man. And, oh, by the way, smart as a whip. A historian, an author, the go-to author, everything Reagan. And also, by the way, just a really good man and a good conservative. Craig Shirley joins us now. Mr. Shirley, good to talk with you.
Larry, good to talk with you. How are you this morning?
I'm well, thank you, and I'm very excited to see that there is a new Craig Shirley Reagan book out because I need one in my life. It's called The Search for Reagan. What do you mean, search for Reagan? Is he missing? What's going on here?
Well, for several reasons. One is that there was never a book about his kindness, his intellect, his compassion. And secondly, there have been many myths and lies spun by the left about Reagan over the years on Reagan and homosexuality, Reagan and AIDS, Reagan and race, things like that. So this is a book to not only talks about Reagan's intellect and his compassion, but also refutes all the lies of the left. Napoleon once said that history is a pack of lies agreed upon, and so this refutes the lies of the left that have been spun over the years about Ronald Reagan. The left knows. Let me just say one thing. The left knows that they want to destroy American conservatism, and the best way to destroy American conservatism is destroy the most important conservative of the 20th century.
Well, Craig, well said, and the timing couldn't be better because I'm seeing lies every day right now about the Reagan presidency, specifically with regard to the spectacle of Joe Biden's mental deterioration before our very eyes and what we saw last week. And I'm seeing people over the weekend saying, well, Ronald Reagan had signs of early onset Alzheimer's when he was president. It's like, I never saw anything like this from Ronald Reagan during his presidency.
I dealt with that, and not in this book. I've dealt with that in several articles. The early onset didn't happen until 6 years after he left the White House. Reagan went to the Mayo Clinic every year of his presidency to be tested for mental acuity, and every year he passed with flying colors. Go on the internet and look at a December 1988 speech he gave, a Q&A with the University of Virginia Law School with students there. And you tell me that man isn't sharp and on top of everything, because this is a very impressive performance. Look at his farewell address to the country in January '89 and tell me this isn't a man who is totally in control of his faculties.
Well, the left is desperate to sort of draw these parallels. They've done it with Donald Trump as well. He mixed up Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley a couple weeks ago, and my gosh, I mean, they love to use the word pouncing. The media definitely pounced on that, and yet Biden has multiple examples. Even when he came out angry about the report from the Department of Justice, he couldn't remember where the rosary came from. He mixed up Egypt and Mexico. So, but they and isn't that why that they're sort of desperate to make it seem like Ronald Reagan was cognitively,
I'm sorry, Julie. Yes,
no.
I beg your pardon. Is the misery love company philosophy of Washington is that, okay, we're sinking, but we're going to drag you down with us. Is that I think a new word is entering the lexicon to denote people's mental irregularities, as Rocky would say. We'll call it Bidenism, right? Is that every time somebody has a mental disorder, we're going to call it Bidenism.
Yeah. Craig, there's also I feel like we're having a fight over conservatism again and again and again, and candidates want to take the mantle. I'm the real Reagan Republican. I'm the real Reagan Republican. I know you've added your name to this letter asking Nikki Haley to step down out of the race. I'd love for you to sort of explain that in terms of where the party is right now and where this primary process is right now.
Well, the conservative philosophy is you got to separate conservatism from republicanism because they sometimes work in tandem and sometimes they're at odds with each other. Is that conservatism is fine and healthy. We know what American conservatism is about: more freedom, less government, privacy, dignity for the individual, all those things that we've always cherished for many years and will continue to cherish. Republicanism goes back and forth, and we understand that. Republicans in 1931 passed Smoot-Hawley, which was restrictive trade barriers. Later became the Free Trade Party, now is back to protective barriers. Republicans have flip-flopped on taxes. In 1970, two Democratic senators, Walter Mondale and Ted Kennedy, proposed massive tax cuts to stimulate the economy, and the Nixon administration said, no, we need massive federal spending to stimulate the economy. So the party has switched roles on taxes. They switched roles on peace, on war, on many, many issues. Republicanism, kind of goes with the politics of the day. Whereas conservatism is a constant, is that you always can rely on conservatism. Is going to be about freedom for the individual and privacy, less government interference. When I wasn't falling asleep in high school physics, I remember the teacher saying, power can neither be destroyed nor created. It can only be moved around. And so power shifts back and forth and has for 250 years between the state and the individual. It keeps going back and forth. And right now we're in a period where it's been flowing toward government and away from the individual. But now with the advent of Donald Trump, is that presumably he's going to win, is that power will then shift back toward the individual and away from government.
By the way, Craig, I see that the foreword of your new book is written by Mark Levin. How'd you get that guy?
Oh, Mark and I have been friends we were friends back in the Reagan days. Who we both. I worked for the White House Conference on Small Business. He worked he was chief of staff for Ed Meese at Justice Department, and so we met at a conservative event back in the early '80s, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah,
he's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person.
Well, also on this letter that you wrote imploring Nikki Haley to step out of the race is Brent Bozell's name, and I want you to listen. Of course, he runs Media Research Center, and just a great, great man. Listen to this montage that Media Research Center put together with anchors and pundits and lackeys speaking up for Joe Biden's age.
If you're concerned about Joe Biden's age, you probably don't know Joe Biden.
Biden is actually in good shape.
Right. Mentally, he's quite acute.
Any aide who engages with him or reporters, we can see this. The gears of his mind are working.
The right-wing media has so fixated on Biden and Biden purportedly having cognitive issues.
It's not just making an issue of Biden's age. It's lying. It's saying he's senile. It's saying he's demented. Saying he's out of it.
Russian. Gosh, Craig, there were only 3 networks back in Reagan's time, but I don't remember. Right. I remember them taking a different approach when it came to Reagan, who was, 9 years younger than Joe Biden at this time.
Yeah. At the end of his administration. He was elected when he was 69. He left office when he was 77. He was still mentally alert and very with it, up until 6 years later when he was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's.
Yeah. It is just outrageous to see the media now going, Biden's fine. Are you kidding? He's at the top of his game. But back then they called Reagan a doddering old, amiable dunce, right?
This is so much in violation of the Constitution. When the framers were assembling the Constitution, the First Amendment has freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom, all those personal freedoms. But freedom of religion, oddly jammed in there is freedom of the press.
Yeah.
But it's out of place. But the framers, and don't get me wrong, is that the framers and the founders hated the broadsheets and the pamphleteers of the era. But they saw the press at the time as a valuable ally of the American people against their government.
That's right.
And it worked for 200 years. It worked. Lincoln complained about the press. Woodrow Wilson complained about the press. John Kennedy Franklin Roosevelt,
of course,
Ronald Reagan, they all complained about the press, but the press was doing its job.
Mark Levin made that point in On Freedom of the Press so brilliantly, that the First Amendment is not to protect Jim Acosta's rights, it's to protect the American people. That's the reason that was in there in the First Amendment. We got to leave it there, sadly. Craig, Shirley, it's always a great conversation. Thanks for writing this book, and good luck with it.
Oh, thank you both. Thank you both, Julie and Larry. Thank you so much.
The Search for Reagan is the book, and it's a good last-minute Valentine's Day present. Why don't you do that, right?
Yeah. Mr. Truitt, and I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
It is 7:17. Let's get straight to
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
WMAL. Making sense of education. Because what's happening in your kid's school matters. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock, and the United States Senate has pulled an all-nighter. And just about 20 minutes ago, they finalized their vote for a Ukraine funding bill, $95.3 billion of foreign aid package that included funding as well for Israel and Taiwan. Because once again, Julie, as I've been saying for over 2 years now, since the Ukraine war began, the Senate and Congress in general, they have never passed a single standalone up or down vote on Ukraine funding. Every single time they wrap it up with something else.
Yeah.
So, so just so politically they could say, if there are senators who righteously believe that Israel needs more aid in defending themselves against the imminent threat of the Hamas terrorists, well, they put that in here so that a senator would vote for that because they have to vote for the other things that they care about.
Right, and they want Republicans on record saying, oh, they voted against, if you're going to be principled and say, because it's lumped together with all these other things, I'm going to vote against it. Well, no, you don't support Ukraine. It's despicable.
This ended up also being a bit of a non-starter because Speaker Johnson put out a statement yesterday saying, we are not taking up the Senate foreign aid bill. We will do our own version of this, and should that pass the House, then they will have to go to conference, and they'll do this whole thing all over again to work out exactly what's in there. But I can tell you this, J.D. Vance pointed out that there is a provision in here that was inserted that basically, as he describes it, ends up being a automatic impeachment trap for Donald Trump. Donald Trump has promised to resolve the conflict and be a big part in resolving the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and ending this financial support for the military effort there. There's language in there that says, should a president not commit and not spend all of the money that has been committed here for the Ukraine war effort, then they will be in violation of the law, and that, of course, would be a high crime and misdemeanor. By the way, try that with Biden. Biden is in violation of the law on our border on a daily basis.
Right.
But the J.D. Vance believes that this was embedded in there specifically for Trump. So if Trump does actually commit to his promise that he's made on the campaign trail, he's basically setting himself up for an impeachment.
No, there's no surprise there. Before the man even gets elected, they're going to try to impeach him, just like they did last time. Not a surprise.
It's 7:21. Everybody who complained about the Taylor Swift element in the NFL, the playoffs, and the Super Bowl, and you cynically said, oh, this is just a ploy for ratings. Well, it worked. This was literally the most watched television program since the moon landing.
That is nuts.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know if it all had to do with Taylor Swift, but I think it had mostly to do with Taylor Swift, honestly. 123.4 million viewers across all the platforms. I think this may have had a big part of it, the fact that it was everywhere and you could watch it on so many different ways. CBS, Univision, Nickelodeon, Paramount Plus, NFL app. I actually watched it on YouTube TV. which is our streaming platform of choice. So, I mean, that helps, the fact that it was ubiquitous. But yeah, I think that there was interest in the non-football elements. And there's, the picture of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce kissing each other on the field and sort of gazing into each other's eyes. Somebody published that on X and put a caption saying, "Well, babe, this is where the contract ends. Have a good life. Thanks for everything."
But this is the thing. I hope that these these platforms realize that Usher gave comparatively a rather PG rated performance, and there was nothing it wasn't political. There wasn't a lot of political messaging. I hope they take note of that.
That's a good point.
I just felt like at the end, I was like, that was great. That was great. I don't have to be outraged or feel like, I'm on one half of this issue or that half of this issue. I just felt like it was a great show.
You're right. And also, listen, I watched it as a football fan, but clearly you don't get this kind of audience with just football fans. It's the non-football fan that was important for this game. And so, but I will say the fact that it was close throughout, in the second half especially, no one's tuning away during a second half like that. And in the first half, I'm thinking people stuck with it because they said, well, it's got to get better.
Yeah.
Because the first half was pretty lousy football. So congratulations, I guess, to everyone participating in the Taylor Swift television ratings conspiracy. All right, coming up in just a moment, we're going to speak with Jaime Brennan, running for Frederick County School Board.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:36. We continue rolling along here on the 13th day of February, Fat Tuesday, and Valentine's Day Eve. I don't remember Valentine's landing on Ash Wednesday in a long time. I'm sure it's happened before, but good luck with that. Either way, I'm sure you'll figure it out. Coming up later in the program at 8:05, we're going to speak with the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Winsome Sears. I'm Larry O'Connor, alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
And, we spend a certain amount of time here focusing on school board races and we've been doing it for many years, because we realize that these are elected offices that, first of all, you, the voter, have the most direct control over, because usually the turnouts and margins of victory are such that just one little block of voters could make the difference. And also they make decisions that affect you on a very immediate, direct daily basis. We all focus on the president, but a lot of times what happens in the White House is much less important than what happens in your house and what these members of the school board can do. We saw that during the pandemic. We've seen it with curriculum choices. We've seen it with library books. And so let's turn our sights now to the Frederick County School Board, which for the last couple of election cycles has sort of teetered on the brink of going the way of Fairfax County, or Montgomery County for that matter. Joining us right now is Jaime Brennan. Now, she is the local chairwoman of the Frederick County chapter of Moms for Liberty, and she is running for the school board. First of all, ma'am, thank you for throwing your hat in the ring. Too many people love to complain and write a Facebook post and call into talk radio show, but then they never actually get in the game, and you are now in the arena. So thank you for running.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you for having me here today.
The website is brennanforboard.com. That's Brennan with two N's. Tell me why your race here is different than your opponents.
So, well, one thing that I have issued now is I have issued my ethical endorsement pledge, which is where I am pledging not to accept financial support or political support, including endorsements or, assistance with door knocking and flyers and that sort of thing, from anyone that FCPS does business with or contracts with, in particular and including the union.
That's excellent. We know that the unions are way too involved in these local elections. And often it's union people themselves. In Alexandria, Virginia, we actually have a school board member who works for Randy Weingarten, which is sort of a head shaker there. Normally you would think that would disqualify someone, but everyone was very happy here in this deep blue city. What is what are some of your opponents saying, and how are you differentiating yourself from them?
Well, so part of what my differentiation is obviously this pledge, because what I don't want to do, I believe in not having a conflict of interest. So if we're going to vote on school board contracts, or we're going to vote for contracts with the union, we need to not have that conflict of interest. So that's one way that I'm trying to set myself apart.
It's a no-brainer. It's such a no-brainer. It's like the people who are funding my campaign and putting me in this position are now the people who I'm facing off against in the negotiation table. Give me a break.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, I'm a CPA by profession, so independence is a huge part of something that's drilled into us. And the minute I got the request from the teachers union to seek their endorsement, I thought, gosh, you know what? This is a conflict of interest, and I just can't participate in this. So I'm encouraging other candidates to also join me in not participating in that process. But, our job as elected representatives is to be the voice of the people. And I don't think you can fairly do that when your campaign, although not directly, but indirectly, is heavily subsidized by the very people that you're agreeing to the largest part of our budget on. Our staff is the largest part of our budget.
So we're speaking with Jaime Brennan, by the way, who is running for Frederick County School Board. And I just wanted to check in with you in terms of what your priorities might be. You heard me talk about, the lockdowns during the pandemic, the curriculum, the books, the policies with regard to transgender children, or children who are being coaxed into the transgender ideologies. What are your priorities, and how will you address those issues?
So my priorities are definitely our performance. Our kids are only about 50% proficient in grade level, so that's something that needs to change. I also want to make sure that we expand school choice options, including our charters, and really expand our career and technology program, because we're graduating kids who don't have basic skills and can't really get jobs. And we need to kind of focus on some workforce readiness. And then also, absolutely, I am, opposed to the plans, the policies which, put boys and girls sports, which require our schools to keep secret from parents if their child is considering gender transition or has transitioned at school. And then obviously, really, really attacking that budget. We have there's no way with almost $1 billion we don't have waste, fraud, and abuse in that budget. And it's time that somebody really attacked that, I think, and, looked at it with a fine-tooth comb.
Well, one of the waste, fraud, and abuse that I've noticed in the Northern Virginia area is that many of these school districts are operating with COVID rules. For instance, their central offices, people are still working from home, and yet they rent these huge, massive buildings. I mean, that's one thing. Is the Frederick County education system, the sort of public school systems, are they back to work? Are they using these buildings, or is it really sort of retaining those COVID policies of work from home?
We are more than some other districts, I think, largely back to work. I think we have retained, we have a large staff of a virtual school that was started during the pandemic that was kind of different than this option that we would give kids who were medically fragile or, had injuries or whatever. That was its whole other program. And so, but they started a COVID virtual school. And so we still have that. We still have that staff. But largely speaking, I think our staff is mostly back in their buildings, at least around here.
All right. Well, listen, thank you for joining us this morning. We'll be watching the campaign. Again, this is the chairwoman of the Frederick County chapter of Moms for Liberty, Jaime Brennan. Oh, boy, your opponents are really going to have a field day with that. And she's also running for Frederick County Board of Education. Good luck with the race. It's BrennanForBoard.com, and keep us updated on how it goes.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You bet. It's our pleasure. It's 7:44. And, Julie, have I been... We've got an update on the plan for the Wizards and the Capitals to move to a brand new arena in Alexandria. There's a couple of hurdles that have been put in front of Ted Leonsis, the owner of the teams. We expected this. The first, of course, comes from Mayor Muriel Bowser, who wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post saying, well, we intend on keeping our lease and our end of the deal here with the Wizards and the Capitals. That includes releasing up to $500 million to renovate the existing arena. And she talked about, bringing the fan experience closer to the court and, making the building integrate better with the community. And you read through this entire op-ed and it's like, lady, you have lost it. This isn't about getting better seats in the arena and having it more comfy or cheaper hot dogs. It's about crime.
It's about nobody wants to go down there.
Yeah, it's about the neighborhood. It's about the crime in the neighborhood and the fact she says I want to continue. We intend to keep our end of the bargain and enforce the leases with money. Right. Part of the bargain is you provide
you
police
take care of the crime.
and law enforcement. Part of the bargain is you protect the people who are coming down and watching the games, and you refuse to do that.
But they haven't kept their part of the bargain for years.
Right.
For years.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in Virginia, so we were expecting this. We were expecting the mayor and the district council to pound their. Just wait. Pretty soon, if they haven't already started saying it, it's racist. Ted Leonsis is moving out of D.C. because he's racist.
And
forget about the fact.
He's going to white Alexandria, Virginia, which, by the way, I will say, lots of no arena signs popping up all over the
I bet. Oh, well,
neighborhoods.
Because traffic not in my backyard.
Yes.
I don't want that traffic. Yes, I don't want those people coming here, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, so we expected that. We didn't expect lawmakers in Virginia to oppose this. This is completely partisan. Democrats in the Senate in Virginia are now trying to block Glenn Youngkin's proposal with Ted Leonsis to build this arena. Everything about this helps Virginia. Everything about this helps Virginians. But the Democrats in Virginia don't look at things that way. They look at, well, we want to help Muriel Bowser and we want to harm Glenn Youngkin. That's all this is about.
But what's interesting is that it was Democrats in Alexandria, Virginia, who put this deal together. Alexandria, Virginia, Arlington, Falls Church, Fairfax, large parts of Loudoun County are run by Democrats. So I do find it this will be a sort of a, pop the popcorn kind of moment, because there are Democrats that are behind this deal, that want this deal for Northern Virginia. So it'll be funny to watch where their loyalties go.
We're going to ask Winsome Sears about this at 8:05. She, of course, is the president pro tem of the Senate, and it's her pal, L. Louise Lucas, the majority leader in the Senate, who is refusing to even docket the bill for a hearing, saying that she has serious reservations about the financing of the proposed deal. That said, there's also suggestions she was angry at Governor Youngkin's speech that he gave at a mock convention over the weekend that was, one of the most nationally minded, nationally focused speeches I've heard from Governor Youngkin. Absolutely attacking Democrats' foreign policy positions, border security positions. He sounded like a man who's ready to be a running mate, frankly, in my opinion. And there are reports that Senator Lucas was very upset that Governor Youngkin would criticize Democrats, because she never does that to Republicans.
No.
And so just out of spite, she's dragging her feet on this arena bill to try to harm Glenn Youngkin. It's the worst, the very worst of partisan politics.